They just realized you knew everything, and the pause that followed was louder than any accusation ever could be. That frozen look, that awkward stillness, that sudden recalibration in their eyes wasn't shock. It was recognition. Recognition that all the whispers, the side glances, the little games played in corners weren't invisible after all. You let them believe you were unaware, because awareness would have forced them to behave. Silence gave them rope, and they took it gladly. Now the rope has tightened not because you pulled it, but because they leaned too far into their own arrogance. The all-stuck expression isn't admiration. It's fear mixed with disbelief. Fear that the entire time they thought they were ahead, they were being rayed. Disbelief that patience could coexist with perception. People assume knowledge announces itself. It doesn't. It watches. What unsettled them most was not that you knew, but that you never reacted when you did. Knowledge without reaction breaks the social contract manipulators depend on. They expect confrontation, denial, confusion. They prepare for arguments and defenses. What they cannot prepare for is quiet comprehension. When someone sees through the act and still chooses restraint, it reframes the entire power dynamic. Suddenly, the person who thought they were pulling strings realizes the strings were always visible. That realization collapses confidence from the inside. The awe on their faces isn't flattery. It's the dawning horror of understanding that every move they made was logged, interpreted, and filed away without commentary. Disrespect feels safe when you believe it goes unnoticed. That's why it escalated. Small jabs became bold moves. Assumptions turned into entitlement. They mistook your calm for ignorance, your composure for confusion. In reality, composure was discipline. Discipline allowed you to watch patterns repeat, behaviors surface, motives expose themselves. People always reveal who they are when they think no one is paying attention. You were paying attention the entire time. The awe-struck moment happened because the curtain lifted all at once. They saw themselves reflected back, not through words, but through your refusal to be surprised. There's a psychological fracture that happens when someone realizes they were transparent to the wrong person. It's called loss of narrative control. They believed they were managing perception, controlling outcomes, shaping reality through suggestion and omission. Discovering that you were immune to that narrative shatters their sense of superiority. Suddenly, every past interaction feels compromised. They replay conversations, searching for the moment you must have known. That mental rewind is torture. It creates paranoia, self-doubt, and insecurity all at once. The all is the brain trying to reconcile how someone could be silent and informed simultaneously. Silence was never absence, it was containment. Your rise didn't begin when they noticed it. It began the moment you stopped needing to expose what you knew. Exposure is for people who need validation. You didn't. You understood timing. Timing is power politics at its purest. Reveal too early and you invite resistance. Reveal too late and you miss leverage. You chose neither. You let realization dawn on them organically, painfully, irreversibly. That's why they look stuck. There's no argument to win. No accusation to deflect. No damage control to deploy. Knowledge already did its work. You didn't accuse them. You outgrew them. The awe they're experiencing isn't respect yet. It's shock at asymmetry. Asymmetrical awareness is devastating because it reveals imbalance without confrontation. One side was performing. The other was observing. When observation finally becomes obvious, performance collapses. Masks fall, confidence drains. They don't know how to behave now because the old script assumed ignorance on your part. With that assumption gone, every tactic feels exposed. That's why their posture changes. Their tone softens. Their eyes search for cues that no longer come. You didn't flip the switch. You let them find it. Power shifts quietly in moments like this. Not through dominance displays, but through psychological gravity. People begin deferring without realizing why. Conversations adjust around you. The same voices that once talked over you now hesitate. This isn't fear of retaliation, it's recalibration. Once someone is known to see clearly, others instinctively behave more carefully. Your awareness rewrote the environment. And because you never flaunted it, the rewrite feels unsettling. They don't know what you'll do with what you know. That uncertainty is what locks them in place. Their unraveling continues internally long after the moment passes. They question past decisions, alliances, strategies. They realize the cost of underestimating someone who doesn't announce intelligence. That regret doesn't seek forgiveness. It seeks relief. And there is none, because you're not engaging in closure rituals. You're moving forward. Moving forward without commentary is the ultimate flex. It signals that what you know doesn't need to be weaponized to be effective. Simply knowing is enough. Your inner power shows in what you don't say. That restraint communicates more than any confrontation ever could. It tells them you are not reactive. You are not impulsive. You are not desperate to be understood. Those qualities place you beyond manipulation. Manipulators require emotional entry points. You closed them long ago. The all-stuck look is the final confirmation that they now understand the distance between who they thought you were and who you actually are. Distance creates safety. For you. One brutal advantage of early clarity is emotional immunity. When understanding settles in before attachment hardens, manipulation loses its sting. You weren't shocked by the betrayals, because betrayal only shocks people who still believe in illusions. You saw the micro signals long before the macro behavior revealed itself. The pauses, the inconsistencies, the way respect flickered on and off depending on convenience. That awareness didn't make you bitter. It made you precise. Precision is what scares people who operate on impulse. By the time others felt wounded, you had already metabolized the truth. You weren't numb. You were prepared. Preparation looks like coldness to those who mistake chaos for authenticity. In reality, preparation is compassion for your future self. It keeps you from bleeding in public when the truth finally shows its teeth. Another consequence of quiet understanding is that it reorders loyalty. You stop confusing proximity with allegiance. You learn that just because someone stands close doesn't mean they stand with you. Early clarity teaches discernment, and discernment redraws circles. Not dramatically, gradually, energy shifts. Access narrows. Conversations thin out. That thinning isn't loss, it's refinement. People who realize the truth late experience it as abandonment because they built their sense of belonging on assumptions. You built yours on observation. When the environment changed, you didn't feel displaced. You felt validated. That's the difference between reacting to clarity and integrating it. One feels like collapse. The other feels like alignment finally catching up to reality. There's also a strategic patience that forms when clarity arrives early and stays quiet. You stop correcting people who aren't ready to hear. You stop warning those committed to misunderstanding. You stop trying to save dynamics that depend on your confusion to function. Silence becomes a filter. Not everyone passes through it, and that's intentional. The people who thrive in clarity don't need explanations. The ones who rely on distortion get restless. Restlessness exposes motive. Motive exposes intent. Intent exposes risk. By letting clarity remain unspoken, you allowed others to reveal themselves without pressure. Pressure makes liars careful. Comfort makes them sloppy. You chose exposure. Another layer most people miss is how early understanding reshapes ambition. Ambition driven by late clarity is frantic. It overcompensates. It tries to make up for lost time. Ambition guided by early clarity is patient. It compounds. You didn't rush to prove anything because proof wasn't the point. Direction was. While others scrambled to redefine themselves after the realization hit, you were already executing quietly. That execution didn't need witnesses. Results don't. When people finally noticed movement, it felt sudden to them. To you, it felt overdue. That difference in perception creates awe. Not because of speed, but because of inevitability. The final shift happens internally, where it matters most. Early clarity dissolves the need for emotional closure. You don't wait for apologies that won't come. You don't seek validation from those who benefited from misunderstanding you. You don't argue with people who need you confused to feel important. That release frees enormous mental bandwidth. Bandwidth becomes focus. Focus becomes leverage. Leverage becomes freedom. When clarity arrives late, it chains people to resentment. When it arrives early, it releases them from it. That's why you move forward without bitterness while others remain stuck processing. You already did the processing when it was quiet. Now it's just execution. Clarity arriving early is a lonely advantage because it removes the illusion of surprise. When understanding settles in before the storm, reactions change. You stop flinching. You stop explaining. You stop hoping people will reveal themselves faster. Early clarity teaches patience, not because patience feels noble, but because it's efficient. While others stumble through confusion, you're already mapping outcomes. Late clarity feels like betrayal to those who experience it. Early clarity feels like responsibility to those who carry it. That's the difference. One creates panic, the other creates preparation. When awareness arrived for you, it didn't demand theatrics. It demanded restraint. And restraint kept you ahead without ever stepping into the spotlight. Watching others discover what you've known for a long time isn't satisfying. It's confirming. It confirms that perception beats reaction every time. There's a psychological weight that comes with seeing patterns early. It means sitting through conversations knowing where they're headed. It means hearing promises while already aware of expiration dates. It means witnessing loyalty perform itself while recognizing the cracks forming underneath. That knowledge could have made you loud, defensive, cynical. Instead, it sharpened your listening. Silence became a tool, not a refuge. While others burned energy trying to control outcomes, you conserved it by accepting reality before it announced itself. Late clarity feels violent because it forces a sudden identity shift. Early clarity allows a gradual one. You had time to detach emotionally before detachment became necessary. That head start is invisible, but it's decisive. The quiet nature of your understanding is what disarmed everyone else. People expect intelligence to perform. They expect insight to argue. They expect awareness to confront. What they don't expect is someone to know the truth and still treat the room with calm neutrality. That calm reads as innocence to those who equate noise with knowing. Meanwhile, you were already adjusting expectations, reducing exposure, reallocating trust. By the time others realized what was happening, the adjustments were complete. Late clarity feels like losing control because it arrives after consequences. Early clarity feels like choosing control because it arrives before them. There's also a timing advantage to understanding human behavior before it turns ugly. You recognized the trajectory while it was still subtle. You saw where entitlement would grow. You noticed how small compromises would become demands. That foresight let you withdraw emotionally long before anyone noticed distance forming. Distance didn't shock you because you built it intentionally. Others felt blindsided because they assumed proximity meant safety. Early clarity teaches that proximity without alignment is risk. You reduced risk quietly. Late clarity amplifies risk because it arrives when damage is already done. When awareness stays quiet, it changes posture. You stop leaning in. You stop chasing clarification. You stop correcting narratives that will collapse on their own. That posture confuses people who rely on engagement to feel powerful. They mistake non-engagement for ignorance. That mistake buys you time. Time to watch alliances reveal their fragility. Time to see who speaks differently when they think they're unheard. Late clarity turns those moments into shock. Early clarity turns them into data. Data doesn't provoke emotion. It informs decisions.